capitalism and ethics are not truly compatible. Now, it's very true that you can find capitalists who do have ethics and a moral code. It's easy to be a capitalist and endorse capitalism and still have things you consider to be right and wrong. But ultimately, the system of capitalism is not one in which ethics are valued or even that beneficial to your cause. What is capitalism, first of all? Capitalism is obviously profiting off commodities. The idea that you take an item and you try and sell it on for more to get more capital. But that's quite a non-specific thing. Profiting off commodities can be anything, because anything can be a commodity in the eyes of a capitalist. It's simply transactions. And with that worldview, you can go wherever you want to go and do whatever you want to do, so long as you're just profiting off it, then you're following the code of capitalism. And certainly in a world of pure capitalism, that would just be a completely free market with no limits on what you can do and no regulations. The person who has the fewest quandaries and boundaries over what they are selling, it's a person who's going to be the most successful capitalist, because they're going to make the most capital. And already in the real world, you can see that's sort of the case already. Because whilst it's true that some corporations do try and take a more green stance, the ones who don't care for environmental legacy or for workers' rights make the most money. So for instance, you look at Amazon and its owner Jeff Bezos, I think, making trillions, or certainly the richest amount of billions, a colossal amount of wealth. And then you look at the sort of work it's built on and the plight of the workers, and it's abysmal. Workers falling asleep, standing up. Workers having to live out of cars because their wages are so abysmal. Workers, essentially working in conditions that you might associate with the 19th century workhouses of Industrial Revolution age UK. But no, it's 21st century America. It's 21st century conditions. Because capitalism has deemed their health and safety less important than profits. But, it's a free market, so that's justifiable. And who are you to question it? Because Amazon have made a lot of money and profits. So, under capitalism, they're the pinnacle of society. And then you could argue, oh, well, if they don't like it, they'll just get another job. But, anyone who's worked at all will tell you that's not the case. That's not a real opportunity in capitalist society. And if those people decide to stop working, they're going to have no income and they're going to, die, essentially. Or certainly not have a very well-off life. So no, they have to continue taking the dismal wages and dismal working conditions, otherwise they'll starve. And obviously, if Amazon don't, they can quite easily make profits without doing that. But it's more beneficial to have more control and more wealth, so they do. So the condition of the workers is squeezed, whilst the top people on top can make their billions. And again, that's not going to be a problem for Amazon, because under capitalism, the person who has the most money is the most successful, using that sort of form of logic. So Amazon's heinous behaviour isn't really a problem in the eyes of capitalists. And people can come along and say, well, this isn't right, there should be some regulations and a minimum wage and working conditions. But ultimately, that person is going to lose to the capitalist who says, no, I don't really care, you're making a lot of money, Amazon, because, as always, the person with the most capital is the most successful, the one who's going to be leading the eyes of the corporations. So Mr. Regulations and safety is going to lose out to the Mr. Profits. To use historical examples, slavery in America, many of their advocates were capitalists, because slavery is essentially taking a massive part of your labour and eliminating the costs you have to give to your workers. By dehumanising black people in America, capitalists at the time, many of them, had a great argument for slavery, because they were able to say to corporations and businesses, well, look at all this cost we're eliminating from your transactions. Look at how wealthy we're going to make you. And indeed, that was an argument of many of the Confederate Southern states at the time. And it's horrific to imagine, but it's very much the case. And as a reason, corporations today, and lots of people still today, use slavery and advocate for, essentially, paying your workers as little as possible. Because, whilst, yeah, fine, maybe it's not exact slavery today, and it's not comparable in entirety to the days of slave trade. But at the same time, you still are seeing slave-like conditions and slave-like, almost minimal wages, being given. And that's a disgrace, but that's capitalism. That's making humans a commodity and profiting off them. And that's always going to be the case. Under capitalism, it does not matter what your morals are, or what your ethical stance is, you're always going to be beaten out by someone who thinks that profits are more important. It's why people in the 1920s, capitalists backed the Nazis, were endorsing Hitler, because no matter how awful his views on the world were, his capitalist policies, his deregulation of Nazi Germany, was great for business, which is why people like Henry Ford endorsed Hitler, because Hitler is good for business, because he's a capitalist with less morals than the average capitalist at the time. And whenever you have a free market, whenever you have capitalism, you're never going to see that moral standard that you want, because there'll always be someone with more profits that they can offer. And it's why we need to move ourselves away from thinking that a free market and capitalism is good. Because whatever ethics you have, you're always going to be beaten by someone who prefers profit. And the free market knows no other measure than profiting off commodities. Capitalism is unethical and immoral. And the sooner we remove ourselves from the idea that a free market can make a free and fair world, the better.